everybody, welcome to the new set. My fiance and I are still unpacking here at the new place, so for right now, let's do one more marathon video and we'll be back to new videos tomorrow. Also, check out the first return stream tonight at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's take a look back at some of the biggest Scream updates we've gotten since the film wrapped this past March. Now, let's get into it.
Cut, Casper. That's a wrap.
Scream 7 has wrapped production at the same time as the new I Know What You Did Last Summer flick. What a coinky-dink. Now let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. According to Production Weekly, Scream 7 has officially wrapped principal photography. Let's go, baby! In today's video, I want to reflect on some of the biggest Scream 7 updates we've had, a big update that just came at the tail end of this production, and also talking about what I think of this film thus far. So first up is an interesting new interview with Jack Quaid, who of course played our lead Ghostface, Richie Kirsch, in Scream 2022. During the premiere of his new film Novocaine, Jack Quaid was asked by E.T. if he would appear in the next Scream film or not. No, I'm not talking about that cute little alien who appears to have nutsacks for skin. I'm talking about Entertainment Tonight. Quaid responded to that question by saying this.
I don't know for sure yet. Okay. I don't know. I will keep my mouth closed on that one.
Very sus, Jack. Not very demure. At this point, I wouldn't be shocked if all the ghost faces were coming back, considering some of the casting announcements we've had in the last couple of months. Like, is this new ghost face here in Scream 7 going to emulate the voices of literally every ghost face using AI in this new flick to torment Sydney? Or does that not really make any sense? I mean, Sydney wasn't even there for one of the ghost face attacks. That is one of the leading theories regarding all these strange casting announcements after all. For Sydney, I think it makes more sense to use Amber's voice, considering that she was the one who killed Dewey. That's why, at least I think, the third act of Scream 2022 focused on Gail and Sydney killing Amber with fire. That was good old-fashioned revenge, baby. Amber's voice might be terrifying to Sydney's, but definitely not Richie's. I mean, she was kicking the shit out of his punk ass at one point. And let's not forget, Sydney literally shot the guy before he revealed himself as Ghostface. That's how much of a bitch Richie is. I can't complain about more Jack Quaid in my Scream film, though. He's just too damn cute. I also think he's one of the best parts of that fifth entry. Now, if Amber Midthunder, his co-star in Novocaine, could star in a new Scream film, maybe Scream 8 as the next Ghostface, I will definitely be happy. Speaking of Scream 7's cast, though, here's the full list of confirmed people coming back for this next one. That is, of course, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Mason Gooding, Jasmine Savoy Brown, Isabel May, Celeste O'Connor, Asa German, McKenna Grace, Sam Reckner, Anna Camp, Ethan Embry, Mark Consuelos, Joel McHale, Matthew Lillard, Scott Foley, Michelle Randolph, and Jimmy Tatro. That doesn't even include some of the actors we've spotted in set photos, like Mr. Victor Turpin. This is a mega cast for a new Scream film, which definitely has me scratching my head for a number of reasons. First of all, I loved Scream 6, but one of the big things I said after seeing that movie was that I'd love for Scream 7 to have a smaller cast, because I felt the previous movie was a touch overstuffed. There were a lot of characters in that last movie, some who hardly even served a purpose. Take Danny Brackett, for instance, cute boy next door. I mean, sure, he had that really cool scene with the ladder, but like, what, he was just a red herring who didn't even get a kill scene in that movie? I mean, come on. And also not to mention the shoehorned legacy characters who barely served a purpose, besides, I guess, finding the ghost faces from the opening scene's lair. Gail's chase scene was really cool and definitely a highlight of Scream 6 as well, but like, was there a point to seeing that? Not really. There is absolutely room for Scream 7 to improve over its predecessor, and one of the big things is actually killing the majority of its cast members, which there are many here. I'm hoping that Scream 7 can have the most bloodshed of any Scream film to date, otherwise we have a massive and glaring problem here. Why even make a slasher film if you're going to have more survivors than people who died? An overstuffed story isn't the only issue I have with the casting, as I am just not a fan of Joel McHale playing Sydney's husband. The role of Mark Evans, originally Mark Kincaid from Scream 3, was intended to be played by Patrick Dempsey. This was given to Joel McHale after Dempsey turned it down due to a scheduling conflict. I don't know why, but some people want to deny that this was really happening despite there being so much evidence of it out there. There are multiple interviews with Patrick Dempsey saying that he was in talks to be in this film but couldn't because his house literally burned down, and it was also referenced in the Scream films already in Scream 2022 when Sydney was talking about her husband, Mark. The director directors of that film, Tyler Gillette and Matt Bettinelli-Olpin, even confirmed in an interview after the film's release that yes, Mark Kincaid is Sidney Prescott's husband. That has now been retconned. I'm not sure why people hate the very inoffensive character of Mark Kincaid so much, but that was absolutely the intention moving forward with the new Sidney story, which has now been altered. Joel McHale was not the first choice for the role, and that is pretty evident. I think this will severely hinder the film, as Joel McHale is best known for his douchey characters from movies and TV shows such as The Bear, Ted, and Community.
Sorry if I'm interrupting any private girl talk about Channing Tatum's index finger, but Lori, I need to see you in my office.
He's such an asshole.
I just don't think the guy is a good match for Sidney Prescott, the world's most insecure final girl of all time. I just don't see any chemistry being there between these two actors, even though I do love them both in their own respective roles that they play so well. I fear this is a severe miscast, and hopefully Scream 7 will focus on Sidney's relationship with her daughter more than her relationship with her husband. There are a lot of positives with this cast, however. I love Sidney's daughter being played by Isabel May. The resemblance between these two actresses is uncanny. I think May will prove to be a new star in this series, hopefully with this flick, and I could totally see her teaming up with the core four at some point. Speaking of which, Chad and Mindy are also reprising their roles here in Scream 7 to rep the 5th and 6th installments. I'm sure they're going to have some great moments together here, just like in the last two movies. I'm really interested to see Sidney Prescott go through a different arc here, serving as a mother figure opposed to just kind of defending herself and her own life. Maybe they're able to tread some new ground with this age-old character. And one of the biggest things I'm hoping to see from the legacy characters here in Scream 7 is not to just shoehorn Gale Weathers into the story for absolutely no reason again. There better be a point to her traveling all the way out to Pine Grove, Indiana, besides just covering the new Ghostface story. We really need to stop doing loops with her character arc, man. My favorite thing about Scream 7 so far is the rumor that the flick will touch on AI and deepfake technology, and how it's a threat to the entertainment industry. To actually hit on a really heavy topic like that could bring some sophistication back to the Scream franchise, which admittedly was absent from the radio silence era. There's nothing wrong with that, and I had a great time with the last two movies. But I think the original run of Scream was brimming with commentary not just on horror movies, but also how the world was reacting to them at the time. So many parents were blaming the movies for the violent actions of their kids, and unfortunately that is still a talking point here in 2025. Hopefully Scream can get its attitude back with this new entry. The absolute biggest thing for me though is that as long as Scream 7 doesn't focus too much on its egregious cameos, which it will definitely have after some of these casting announcements, I think this film is going to be fine. It might even achieve its 90s feel again, which I know so many fans are clamoring for. It's definitely going for that ever since Neve Campbell announced her return as Sidney Prescott via Instagram, and franchise creator Kevin Williamson directing the new installment. If Scream 7 really wants to hit those same strides, it has to bring the bite back to this series. We have to touch on some topics that may offend some people, just like those original movies. You know how many moms were pissed in the late 90s that they were making horror films directed towards a younger audience? We need to bring that back for Scream 7. They have to do more than just putting the focus back on Sidney Prescott. That's not going to magically repair the series and make it feel like how it used to. We need a poignant story with our main characters that has a little spice to it. A massive middle finger to the tech bros who want to ruin the film industry with their stupid AI software would probably be the best way to give Scream its razor-sharp edge again. I'm praying that that's a focus of this movie, but I am a little worried that this could be nostalgia boot soup. That version of this movie is something I'll likely forget about on the car ride home. Here's hoping that Scream 7 is more than just Scream Endgame, but we'll find out on February 27th of 2026. Please don't let this suck, Kevin.
Sam, let me go. No.
Now let her go, Sam, come on!
In the last few weeks or so, Matthew Lillard talked about being terrified to return to the Scream franchise, Joel McHale has detailed his role in the new film, and Jenna Ortega clarifies why she won't be returning for this upcoming entry. Now let's get into a few Scream 7 updates that you might have missed. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and I just found out that Drew Starkey, I'm talking about Rafe Cameron on Outer Banks, is in season 3 of the Scream show. I did not even recognize him in that. Man, I wish he was Ghostface in one of the movies though. We're kicking off this update with something we rarely talk about on this page. Some talk on Stu Macher, a character played by Matthew Lillard, who I definitely want to see return from the grave. Lillard teased his mysterious return to the series, telling People magazine, "I will say I can't say anything about it obviously, but I am very excited and slightly terrified to be back, because all I can do is really screw up a legacy that we have. I could really suck, and so that's my fear. My fear is that I come back and sort of punish something that I could never have touched and been just fine. I hope I don't F it up for everyone." Well, resurrecting a dead character in a series that relies on its grounded ties to reality might F it up a little bit, man. Hopefully this meta slasher franchise won't dip into some Jason Lives Supernatural-ish this February. Fingers crossed. Getting worried. All right, we ripped that band-aid off. Let's get into the actual news. The CinemaCon panel for Scream 7 was slightly disappointing to some fans, although we did get an official logo from their release schedule. Allegedly, some pictures of the brand new cast were shown at CinemaCon, but no new footage to really report on. Listen, I'm gonna say a lot of negative things about Scream 7 in today's update video, but with this one, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. They just wrapped filming here. Of course, they're not gonna have something ready to go for CinemaCon that happened like a month later. And another positive I gotta give to Scream 7, admittedly, is it is pretty cool that Neve Campbell is confirmed to be an executive producer on the film. That shows confidence from your actors. That to me is slightly promising. Sidney Prescott's on-screen husband, played by Joel McHale, spoke up about his role in Scream 7, talking with Collider recently. Reading the quotes from this interview would be futile, as he's keeping those delicious spoilery morsels locked up in that big brain of his. For instance, when he was asked to tell us anything about Scream 7, he replied, "I will tell you, Ghostface Killer is in this one." Hang on, is he talking about the rapper? Maybe that's the big reveal! Okay, seriously though, Joel did reveal that he was filming Scream 7 for about 2 weeks, and even shared a scene with his Yellow Jackets co-star, Jasmine Savoy Brown. If Joel ends up being Ghostface in this one, maybe this means that Mindy will finally make it to the third act this time and won't be knocked out or something. There's a first for everything. We've also heard from an insider at In Touch that Courtney Cox was the reason behind David Arquette's return to the series. The insider detailed rebuilding the Scream franchise from the ground up has been a huge part of Courtney's life for the last year, after the original plans for the 7th film imploded and the stars and director left that project. Courtney has helped turn the reimagined movie into a once-in-a-lifetime reunion of the classic 1996 original, bringing back Matthew Lillard and even her ex-husband David into the cast, despite the fact that their characters had been definitively killed off in previous installments. Now, while I think it's sweet that Courtney is looking out for her ex here, I can't help but feel like this is just one big effort to get all of the original stars from the past back in the new movie, rather than actually telling a good story. I mean, just read that quote one more time. Courtney has helped turn the reimagined movie into a once-in-a-lifetime reunion of the classic 1996 original. Hasn't almost every sequel done that in this series? Pretty much every sequel except arguably Scream 6 has done that, so I don't know why they're marketing this like it's something fresh. Can't this franchise do something that's not tethered to the original? Please, I am begging you. The most recent and most interesting update from today's video, however, is all about Tara Carpenter actress Jenna Ortega. While there was some speculation on why the actress wasn't going to appear in the next installment, she has since cleared the air. Talking with Variety, Ortega clarified it had nothing to do with pay or scheduling. The Melissa stuff was happening and it was all kind of falling apart. If Scream 7 wasn't going to be with the team of directors and those people I fell in love with, then it didn't seem like the right move for me in my career at that time. I hate to sound petty, but I bet all of the people who left me super nasty messages about when I first reported on this are feeling pretty stupid right now. This, in my opinion, has been pretty obvious since Ortega's quick departure from the franchise shortly after Spyglass Media tried to defame previous lead Melissa Barrera. If you're new here, first of all, welcome. Thank you for watching this video. I greatly appreciate you. But what essentially happened is that Spyglass Media got mad that Melissa shared an article they deemed anti-Semitic, even though she clearly just cared about ending the genocide happening on the other side of the world. It's been a frustrating situation, especially for fans of Screams 5 and 6 like myself, and it has certainly left a nasty taste in our mouths moving forward with this franchise. My respect for Jenna grows with another quote from her recent interview from The Cut. Talking about her exit from the Paramount franchise, she said, "I've happened to join a lot of franchises, which is so great to be a part of Legacy. But for me, I'm really trying to prioritize new directors and original stories. I know on the outside maybe people are looking at my choices like, man, what the hell is this girl doing? I never thought I would do a movie like A24 A24's Death of a Unicorn, but an original script is exciting. If I can help get it made, I'd love to do that. Amen, baby! Jenna's focus here on original films is incredibly important, here in a day and age where studios seem to really only care about franchise continuations. I mean, look at this release schedule again from earlier. It's mostly sequels. Some of them are sequels to franchises that I don't even think need continuations. Frankly, I think excitement for original movies is one of the most important things regarding movies right now. I really think studios need to start putting a little more money into the marketing for original movies to potentially build excitement around them again. One of the most rare things nowadays is a hit that's an original IP, not something that is based on something that already exists. Otherwise, we're gonna continue to get the same old gray slop Minecraft movie. Speaking of great original films, by the way, that Death of a Unicorn rocked. If you have not seen it, check it out. I think it's still in theaters. I think. I'm terrified that gray slop is what we're about to get from one of my all-time favorite slasher franchises, but despite a lot of the crazy updates we've had for this one, I am staying optimistic. Scream is in a rough spot right now, but with more projects on the horizon, there's hope for a fresh story to come from this series again. While I had my criticisms of Screams 5 and 6, they still delivered brand new concepts to chew on that we've continued to talk about on this page since their release. I hope that one day this series realizes that it can truly go on forever if they just have a new character donning the ghost face mask, going after a completely new set of characters every single time, and it will still, definitely, without a doubt, make money. You don't have to make movies where the legacy characters come back every single time. I mean, there was really only 2 legacy characters in Scream 6, and that one made even more money than Scream 5. An innovation like this could keep this series going forever with continuous new ideas from a bunch of different voices. I'm hoping to see something similar to what's happening with the Evil Dead and Predator franchises be applied to Scream one day, but this new entry just feels so rinse and repeat so far. I am still excited for whatever the future of this franchise holds.
Wow, you know, you girls have really given me a lot to think about. Thanks.
It's been a pretty long time since we had a bona fide Scream 7 update, so let's recap some of the rumors and fan theories that have been posted just in the past few months here. Scream 8 may already be in the works, Marco Beltrami is back to score this new flick, and there's some new theories floating around that suggest this new entry is definitely going to try something new. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Let's kick off this update with a quote from Sidney Prescott's new husband, Joel McHale, or in the film, his name is Mark Evans, the whitest name I have ever heard. Responding to a fan on Reddit about working on the set for the new film, Joel said Kevin Williamson is the GOAT. Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox are true movie stars, generational talents. So blessed that I got to work with them. Jasmine is so great, so lucky to work with her more than once now. Joel McHale is also on Yellow Jackets. I haven't gotten that far in the series yet, so please no spoilers. It is great to hear about how much fun they had making this movie, however, which definitely bodes well for the film overall. Speaking of which, a Scream 8 is rumored to be moving forward after this one comes out. It's said to be another Sydney story taking place after the events of 7. It does make me wonder though if we're still getting that Kirby movie that was floating around Production Weekly a while back. I really hope so, because I'm curious to see what Detective Reed has been doing since 2023. She's also like the only Scream character who's not returning for Scream 7 at this point. What's going on there? I feel like they have to be doing some sort of spin-off movie with her to explain why she's not here in this film. We might have even more previous Scream cast members joining the franchise sometime soon, however, as Sarah Michelle Gellar just said this in a recent interview.
You were in Scream.
No, the new one. They were bringing everybody back. I kept thinking I would get a call. I didn't get a call.
Usually, I wouldn't even be bringing something like this up. We have had many actors from Scream's past talk about wanting to return even though their characters are dead, but considering the current trajectory of the franchise, I wouldn't be shocked if they found a way to base Scream 8 off of CeCe Cooper somehow. Don't forget, SMG was present on the set of the new I Know What You Did Last Summer and may even be returning for that Buffy revival series. Scream just got Matthew Lillard back, who's having a career renaissance right now. Why not have SMG back too? I'm sure this franchise would be all about that these days. It was also recently confirmed that Marco Beltrami will return to score the 7th installment, which is my favorite update in today's video. Beltrami's score for the original Scream film is one of my favorites in horror history, baby. And I definitely feel that the 5th and 6th installments were missing something without it. Not to throw any shade towards Brian Tyler though. I actually really like a few of the tracks on Scream 6 in particular, but nothing beats the iconic sounds of the original film. Music is one of the most important and sometimes underappreciated elements to a good horror flick, so it's good to know that Scream 7 is in the right hands. Now, there's been some Scream 7 theories theories floating around recently that I found really interesting. To preface this, I feel like there's two big sides to the Scream fandom right now, and it all boils down to one argument. Some folks want to see this franchise take a new direction with its characters, while others are clamoring for a new Sydney story. Interestingly enough, the one thing I feel like everybody agrees on is we want to see Ghostface have a new motive, something that's incomparable to anything we've gotten before in the past. A ton of theories have popped up regarding that in the fandom, and I kind of want to share a piece of information that I've been hiding for a little while here. I want to keep this vague, but I've heard from a few of my sources at this point that the Ghostface reveal this time around is going to be different than anything we've seen before in this franchise. And while I have my concerns about the film, this has me intrigued. I have a lot of respect for Scream 6, diving into new territory for the slasher series, having the most amount of killers in one movie, featuring a groundbreaking opening scene, and building upon the characters from the 5th installment in fruitful ways. Not all of it works for me, we've dissected those last two films a lot on this page, but I did really appreciate that the 6th installment was able to find a way to get so punk rock again in such a modern way. Based on what I know about 7, I can guarantee you the reveal this time around is going to feel very similar to that of Scream 6's. I already think I'm saying too much here, but although many elements of this flick seem to be reverting back to the original, I know for a fact that the reveal here this time around is a swing for the fences. A lot of you have been close on your predictions regarding this reveal. I've been wanting to say something, but I'm holding my tongue for now. On a final note here, I've been pretty reluctant to talk about Scream on this page lately because I just don't feel the same hype or energy as the last two films. Going into the last two flicks, it felt like anything could happen, where I just don't have that same creative spark with this new film to come up with as many theories. They gave away a lot of the surprises during the production of this film, which feels like they just don't even want fans to come up with theories and basically give the film free marketing. And these updates have made the film feel like it's going to be fan service the movie, essentially another Five Nights at Freddy's, and that's just not something that excites me regarding the Scream franchise, which is supposed to be making fun of films like Five Nights at Freddy's. That's even confirmed by a new quote from one of the cast members. Regarding the early announcement that many dead cast members would be returning to this film, Matthew Lillard recently stated, "I was not supposed to be announced until the trailer, but I think that we were all pretty conscious of the fact that the people are going to start paying attention to that general area, so sneaking me in and sneaking me out would have been very difficult. So eventually we broke the news before I got a chance to leak." See, there are just so many inherent problems with that in my opinion. There are many things that make a great Scream film, and we've talked about these elements a lot on this page, but one of them is you have to shock and surprise your audience. I would argue that is a near impossible task with the same old characters. This quote here exactly outlines that. With how advanced modern technology has become, you simply can't sneak actors onto sets, otherwise something would leak, which is why this production was forced to make that announcement. Knowing that though, wouldn't it have just been easier to create a twist revolving around new characters that we weren't already familiar with? Now that we know that Scott Foley, Matthew Lillard, and David Arquette are all going to reprise characters from the past, we basically know that they're going to be doing some sort of flashback sequence that calls back to the original, like literally every single franchise entry has done recently. My prediction is we already know a lot of the big surprises for this film, and that's the production's fault, not some leakers. Now, admittedly, this is not the first time that the modern Scream films have spoiled a big surprise in their own movie. Scream 5 notoriously posted a bunch of pictures with the cast and crew outside of that recreation of Stu's house, and then it played as a surprise in the film, which was kind of bizarre to me. All of those early announcements are just the same thing, but in my opinion, way worse. Why would they be showing us a flashback scene to something that probably happened in 1995 or even 1996 prior to the events of the original Scream if it wasn't going to affect the story here in 2026? Obviously, a lot of this is speculation, but I would bet my bottom dollar on the fact that we probably have most of the big Scream 7 twist figured out at this point, and there's probably not even a rough cut of the film assembled right now. That is a major problem for this franchise in particular. But really, it all boils down to the fact that it's just really tough to come up with a shocking new story with the same old characters. It's not that these characters suck. I love them. They're iconic. Sidney Prescott is my favorite final girl of all time. It's a hill I'm gonna die on. She's better than Laurie Strode in every single regards. Sorry, Halloween fans. But as a huge Scream fan, I would hate to see these characters utilized in a subpar twist when they're already a part of some of the very best in horror history. Like I said, this is all speculation, and it's way too early to guess what is actually going to happen in Scream 7, unless you were one of the cast members or people part of the production who do know. Hopefully y'all have signed some NDAs, and your boy here is gonna keep an open mind until we see a first trailer. I can't stress this enough, nothing would make me happier than to be wrong on this. but I don't think I am.
See, we had to bring the legacy characters back to make it matter. Can't have a bona fide Halloween without Jamie Lee.
Nope.
Scream 7 scribe Guy Busick recently spoke with comicbook.com about the upcoming slasher sequel. He revealed some interesting elements to the new flick that might just paint a better picture of what's to come. Now let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Just a bit of recap before we get into today's update, and I'm gonna try to do this quickly for the folks who have heard me say this like 100 times now. Melissa Barrera was fired for a really stupid reason. Jenna Ortega left the project shortly after that. The original director, Christopher Landon, left the project because he was being harassed by fans. You know who you are and you suck. Now it's a Sydney movie again, and the screenwriter of the original film, Kevin Williamson, is directing this new movie, marking it as his second directorial effort. A bunch of dead characters are also back as well, like Stu, Roman, and Dewey. It's super weird. Okay. Now you're caught up. Diving right into this though, Guy Busick just did an interview with comicbook.com giving us our biggest update on Scream 7 in a while. He offered up something about Scream 7 that made for a major aha moment when I read it, and I think I know what Scream 7 is going to be touching on regarding its commentary. So let's break it down. First off, Guy credits writer James Vanderbilt on bringing in the Meeks Martin twins into this story, saying, "I believe it was James that came up with it. I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say it's through Gail. She's the connective tissue in 5 and 6, and she's in this. New York was obviously a big part of that. She bonded with those 4, and there's a reason why these 2 come to this town where the action is happening." I think after Jasmine Savoy Brown and Mason Gooding were both cast in this flick, we sort of kind of knew that that's how they would be brought into this, through Gail. I'm sure the twins are also here to explain where the Carpenter sisters are, someplace safe, I hope. Busick also states that the film is roughly set 2 years after the events of Scream 6, just in case anyone was curious. This is no Saw sequel where it's gonna take place at the same time as the last film. Although that would be pretty crazy, right? Speaking of the core 4, Busick reminisces on the script that could have been. Before Spyglass Media decided to fire Melissa Barrera for absolutely no good reason, Scream 7 was supposed to be the final chapter for the new characters that this series has been building upon in the last 2 entries. Guy Busick explains that it was a completely different thing, saying, "We weren't able to use what we had in the previous iteration for this one. We just had to start from scratch, which was a bummer. We were excited about what we had for that movie. We wanted to do one more core 4 movie. We know the fans love those characters. We love those characters. We created those characters. I would love to see in some universe the continuation of their characters in some way, but we weren't able to port over the stuff from the other story. It was like, okay, here is what the universe dealt us." It is a major bummer, as we'll never know what could have unfolded in that final chapter there. I doubt after all that drama too, that Melissa or Jenna here would ever work with this company again, so as long as Spyglass holds the rights, a true concluding chapter for the sisters probably won't happen. Scream 6 does feel like a fitting end to their story, however, with Melissa literally dropping the mask at the end of that flick. But in my opinion, it felt like everything with the main characters was just tightening up in that sequel. It was a major improvement over the 5th film, in fact. I feel like that upward trend would have only continued into a 7th installment, learning more things about these characters, making them even stronger. But now we'll never know. With this series seemingly desperate to pave a new path, it was kind of a head scratcher at first when it was announced that Sidney Prescott would be the focus of this series once again. She's a great character, don't get me wrong, but is there more story to tell with someone whose arc is already complete? Guy Busick also had an interesting answer there. Regarding Sidney's return, Guy says, "I don't want to give anything away about the reason Scream 7 had to be a Sidney movie, because there's a really cool reason. In all these movies, you have to ask, why now? What is the thing Scream is commenting on now? Scream is always in a conversation with the audience about the state of movies, the state of horror movies, and in particular franchises." Guy's not exactly keeping it too secretive here, because I feel like it's fairly obvious what the 7th installment is going to be hitting on based on all of the public updates. It screams H2O. The 30th anniversary for the original flick is literally next year, and we also will see the return of many dead characters in the series. And yes, I said dead, including Stu Macher, Roman Bridger, and Dewey Riley. Why else would they be bringing these characters back unless there was some sort of major flashback to the original film that changes everything here in the present? Also, I just want to point out that I'm wearing a shirt that says 2016 on it because that was the 20th anniversary of the original Scream. But what does this mean for Scream 7? The ghost faces in this movie will likely be motivated by that 30th anniversary mark of the original killings in universe, which means they have some sort of ties to the original film. I'm gonna be honest, that physically pains me to say at this point. I feel like this has been pretty obvious to Scream fans ever since Stu, Roman, and Dewey were all announced to be returning to this flick somehow. It has to be a flashback to the original at this point. That's the only way this would make sense. You can't tell me all three of those characters are still alive somehow. We saw all of them die in very visceral ways. All of them. So will the killer be Stu's vengeful sister, who we only just learned about in the 5th entry? Probably, yeah. Okay, that last part's speculation, but most of this, I feel like we're hitting right on the head, dude. My problem with all of this is we've kind of already told this story in universe very recently. Scream 5 was the requel that celebrated the original film by setting itself in the town from the first movie, and even featured a 3rd act at the same damn house. See, that felt appropriate though back in 2022, because it was the first film released in this franchise beyond Wes Craven's unfortunate passing. While the 5th movie hasn't exactly aged very well in every single regard, I am happy that it honors his legacy. One of the biggest problems with that movie though is it kind of copies and pastes a lot of the great things about the 4th entry that came out 11 years prior, which was of course Wes Craven's last dance in the film world. With Scream 4 being my personal favorite sequel, I just feel like that movie did it way better. Amber is still my favorite killer in the radio silence era of Scream though. She rocks. Then, while Scream 6 was a major improvement upon what 5 had built, there was still the injection of nostalgia bait that felt so unnecessary. That movie shines when it's just doing its own thing, but it's kicked in the side by the current nostalgia craze, especially in that shrine sequence. I mean, it's a cool location and I liked it as a 3rd act setting, but ultimately it's just this series sucking its own dick. Scream 5 had a reason to go back to the original, where Scream 6 should have just committed to doing its own thing. Now, Scream 7 seems to be just spinning its wheels and resting on its laurels. It's going back to what worked in Scream 5 and essentially Scream 4. Look, this series has always been mainstream and popular, and it's doing what most mainstream and popular franchises tend to do. But this series has built itself off of that punk streak of making fun of its competitors. Where is that energy? I'm just not feeling any of that with Scream 7, which is why I feel like there's this lack of hype regarding this film. That excitement of anything could happen in a new movie is just not there with Scream 7, where it was with Screams 5 and 6. I'm just really hoping 7 can shock and surprise us somehow, even though it seems like a distant dream at this point.
The one thing I can tell you about Scream 7 was that it was absolutely incredible to be invited. That is a lovely community of people.
Today's Scream 7 update not only gives us a fresh perspective on this upcoming Sydney story, but may also give us an idea as to when we will see the first trailer for the film. Now let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Kicking off today's video are more interviews with franchise creator and director of Scream 7, Kevin Williamson. Chatting with Screen Rant, Williamson talked about how he got the directing gig and addressed the absence of the Carpenter sisters, saying it was sort of, well, what's going to happen after we lost Melissa and Jenna and it just looked like we weren't going to see the Carpenter sisters in a 3rd movie. It was kind of a bummer. It's like, what do we do next? I appreciate that he's finally addressed this in some capacity. A lot of fans love these new characters and are really bummed that they're not returning for another film. Williamson continued saying, and then this idea to bring back Sidney Prescott. And not just bring her back, but to focus on her character, tell her story of who she is today. That got really exciting for me, and I think other people got really excited about it. And then they started writing a script. Jamie came up with this great story, Jamie Vanderbilt and Guy Busick, and it just sort of took on a life of its own. And then Nev read it and heard the pitch, and she signed on. I was still just the executive producer who was just sort of there watching from the sidelines. And then Nev came to me one day and said, I think you should direct this. And I went, no. Okay, I'll do it. Lots of things to love here. I have said from the beginning, no matter who Scream 7 focuses on, just make them the sole focus. That was a big issue I had with Screams 5 and 6, constantly diverting the attention to a bunch of nostalgia baiting instead of building up the character of Sam Carpenter, who I still feel has a lot of potential for more stories because the 2 big movies she was in doesn't even focus on her character that much. Or at least on the most uninteresting aspects to her character, her being Billy's daughter. I don't care. Melissa Barrera brings a lot of life to that character, and I would have loved to have seen some sort of detach from the past to just focus on who Sam is today. So even though Sidney Prescott is a character who has already had her story told, I am excited that this movie is hopefully going to focus on just that, maybe leaving the nostalgia baiting crap in the past. Hopefully that's not just a built-in component of this series moving forward. And also, I can't stress this enough, enough, passion from any director is a great thing to hear. Kevin seems to be thrilled to be telling the story, and I really hope that it delivers. With how many dead characters are returning and many of the film's biggest surprises already released to the public, I'm worried one of the biggest things going for this film is just going to be nostalgia again. Hopefully there's more to this one. Kevin has been super busy lately promoting his new series, The Waterfront, which is why he's been interviewed a bunch talking about this new Scream movie. In a different interview with Collider, Kevin confirmed a rumor regarding Sydney, saying, "I'm excited because I love Neve Campbell so much, and I love the cast. I'm just totally immersed in Sydney Prescott and who she is, and everything she's been through, and all these different incarnations of her life as seen through the entire franchise. And now what I love about this movie is that we get to go home with her and see who she is today and how she's raising her children, what kind of person lives through everything she's lived through, and still manages to wake up and get out of bed and be a mother, and to be a business owner, and to be all these things. What does she do when Ghostface comes calling? It's just another way to tell the story." Kevin doubles down in this interview about the film focusing on Sydney's life. Hopefully it's not another Passing of the Torch requel film where it's actually just all about Sydney's daughter. With all due respect to Isabel May, I just don't care. Focus on the character you're telling me you're going to focus on, unlike the last two films. I am begging you as a Scream fan to please do that. He also confirms that yes, Sydney Prescott is a business owner now, which is something we've kind of known through rumors and set photos for a while now. When we were covering the actual production earlier on this year on the page, we talked a bit about how Sydney Prescott is going to own a coffee shop. We've also seen some photos of it too, like this one here. I even revealed that I got to see a video of Isabel May getting chased by Ghostface around this same location. I wasn't gonna talk about this publicly, but a bunch of YouTubers already have. I think it's kind of spoilery because it rules out Sydney's daughter is Ghostface. Not that they would ever take that direction though. I mean, that would be a twist, come on now. How many family members are going to betray Sydney? Like, it's starting to get a little ridiculous. It's gotta be somebody else here. There's a second part to this Collider interview that I loved where Kevin says, "What I love about Scream is that it can take so many different avenues. Now that it's a franchise, we can go to New York, we can go to a small town, we can go anywhere we want. It's opened and expanded beyond just Woodsboro, California, and that's what I love about Scream. It's broadened and it's grown and it keeps going. There's never one killer, there's always a new killer and a new motive. We have that mystery element. That's what I love about Scream. That's what I wanted it to be, and I'm so blessed that it became what it became. This is what I love about where Scream is right now too. Sure, Scream 6 didn't have the strongest mystery of the franchise. I don't even think fans of that film are saying that, but it was able to play around with a lot of franchise tropes, which is unfortunate that Scream, of all the franchises out there, has tropes now. Scream 7 should be no different, in my opinion, trying to find ways to subvert that. This quote and a lot of the other things Kevin has been saying, especially in this video here, kind of confirms that, yeah, they're trying to find ways to get around those things and do something unexpected for the fans. Kevin also talks about the challenges that come along with this entry, saying, "It's really hard. It's Scream 7. Let's not fool ourselves. How do you do that? It's a challenge. You want the audience to be scared and want them to have a good time, but Scream is a lot more than that. It's comedic, it's dramatic, it's emotional, and it's scary, but it's hard to keep all that alive. You just work really hard to keep it fresh and to keep the turns and twists coming." All of this is very humbling and an incredibly necessary statement. I feel like there's been this facade of confidence over Scream 7 that just feels a little out of place considering all of the drama that has happened in the past couple of years. There's nothing wrong with having faith in your new project, but to not address the issues that have come along with it tells me maybe you're faking some of your excitement. This statement here feels honest and human. And let's be honest, Scream 7, just that title alone, comes with some challenges. The Scream movies are murder mystery films that build upon one another. If the creators aren't realizing that the story is getting a little convoluted, something is wrong. It's one of the big reasons I pushed for this series to potentially follow new characters at some point, leaving the legacies in the past. Just because, like, how can you execute a well-done murder mystery with the same people over and over and over again? Eventually, you're gonna run out of people who want to kill Sydney Prescott. Scream needs a lot of key elements to work, and one of them is a really well-done murder mystery that hopefully isn't too predictable. If you just keep bringing back the same old characters that tie back to the original film, eventually you're going to get constant overcomplicated messes, where these films should just be fun little murder mysteries with some camp, meta moments, and bloody kills. Kevin actually addressing that doing Scream 7, especially in this way, is a challenge gives me a lot more faith in the film, however. This tells me the creatives have thought a lot about some of the issues that fans have had with the last couple of films and found ways to work around them. Hopefully that means that some of Scream 7 is actually something fresh, opposed to just tacking together a bunch of nonsense just for nostalgia baiting purposes. I also have to give credit to Kevin Williamson. This is not an easy thing for someone who is especially a franchise creator, not only the director of the new film, to admit here. I have a lot of respect for things like that. There were a few other tiny updates on the film, like Hayden Panettiere has pretty much addressed the fact that she's not going to be in this flick. We never got any word that she was joining the cast, which sucks considering how many legacy characters have joined Scream 7, but Kirby Reed, unfortunately, will not be doing any detective work in this upcoming installment. She does hope to play the character again sometime in the future, though, and there's definitely going to be more Scream movies, let's be real. The juiciest news on Scream 7 comes from composer Marco Beltrami, though. When asked when he'll have the Scream 7 score done by a fan on Instagram, he replied by saying that it'll be done in August. This is extremely notable because usually the last thing that's done in post-production is completing the score on a film. That usually means that the next phase is the marketing, which means a trailer. I've speculated for a while that the Scream 7 trailer will drop sometime towards the end of the year, but this means it may come even sooner. With the release date being February 27th, usually horror films start the marketing process about 3 months prior, which would be the end of November. Now, usually I would say, oh, the Scream 7 trailer is coming out alongside Thanksgiving too, which currently has a November of 2025 release date. But the thing is, the star of that film, Nell Verlaque, has recently confirmed that they haven't even started filming yet. There is absolutely no way in hell that that movie is coming out in November if they haven't even started filming. Or maybe they did just start filming, it ain't coming out in November. Unfortunately, that's just crazy talk. I don't think we see Thanksgiving 2 until November of 2026. With that being said, Scream 7's trailer could drop at the tail end of spooky season. You know, the time period where a lot of people are usually rewatching that entire franchise. That would be a perfect time to drop it, opposed to November where there's a major horror slump. Trust me, I know all about it. It is impossible to get people to watch horror videos during that time of year. I'm currently preparing for it. If it's a big drop for me, it's gotta be an even worse drop for the big studios who actually put out horror films. If I were Spyglass, I'd personally release the trailer maybe a week before Halloween. I'm excited to finally see the trailer and also have a better understanding of what this film is all about. A lot of the updates we've gotten have been all over the place.
Maybe he gets to win this time.
We've had some really exciting Scream 7 updates this week, with some new comments from cast member Ethan Embry and a new interview with director Kevin Williamson. In today's video, let's break it all down as well as dissecting some juicy new rumors. Now let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Let's start off today's update video with something positive. Chatting with the New York Post, Williamson said, "I've always been on the fringes of the last few Scream movies as sort of the granddaddy of the franchise. They've been very kind to me and very welcoming. And then they allowed me to direct this one, and we had a blast. It was so nice to work with Courtney Cox and Sydney and tell a new story, so I hope people like it." When asked if he could reveal anything on Matthew Lillard's surprising return to the series, Kevin said, "Nothing, not one word. But I will say I love Matthew, and it was such a pleasure to call him up. They let me be the one to call and ask them back to the franchise. And that was a really nice phone call. Sorry, Stu Truthers, no update yet on if the character is just coming back in flashbacks or if he's coming back alive with television-themed superpowers. I guess we won't know until it comes out." The most interesting thing from this interview was when Kevin talked about not having the Carpenter sisters in the movie. Speaking on it, Williamson said, "Watching all that go down, and I'm not even sure what happened. I can't really speak to it because I wasn't a part of it. The thing about Scream is it can live in any form, and you can return to a character like Sydney and Gale and tell that story. And then the next one can be about someone else. I really like this idea that Scream has evolved into a franchise that can expand in those ways." That last part is music to my ears. This tells me that if Scream 7 doesn't work out, which is a possibility, this is a film that unfortunately went through an entire script rehaul, and typically that doesn't bode very well for the majority of films that have gone through something similar, Kevin would be open to starting fresh once again. That has me excited to see him have a little more of an open mind about his franchise, and he's not just completely stomping out the last two films. I think it would be really fitting if Kevin was the one to direct the film that transitions this franchise into a new era of Scream, focusing on new characters who have a ghost face problem. He could usher in the new era of Scream while putting the Sidney Prescott story to bed with this new movie. I feel like franchise fans could get behind something like that, especially because it's coming from the original creator of this series. That might be the best way to do it. There was also an exciting new interview with Scream 7 cast member Ethan Embry with Bloody Disgusting, where he talked a little bit about his original audition for the first Scream movie. Talking about his history history with this series, Embry said, "The one thing I can tell you about Scream 7 was that it was absolutely incredible to be invited. That is a lovely community of people from the very beginning to what it is now, and I've been wanting to be a part of that franchise since the very beginning. I remember auditioning for Scream 1. I can't remember if it was for Jamie Kennedy or Matthew Lillard. It was one of those, but I remember not getting good feedback from Mr. Craven." Damn, that's gotta hurt coming from the master of horror, dude. Hey, at least Kevin Williamson's got you in this one, though. It is interesting to me that he was up for the part of one of the killers in the original Scream film, however. It makes you wonder if he's playing our Ghostface this time around. Speaking of which, some rumors have landed online surrounding his character. I greatly appreciate that Jude here follows me on Twitter, but let's take his words with a grain of salt, as he is a third-party source. For a little context before we get into this rumor, there's been one floating around for a while now that says that Gale is gonna run over some sort of mental patient, and that's gonna ultimately take her back to some sort of psychiatric hospital. I haven't really brought it up in videos as I don't really have any interesting ideas to throw at that kind of concept. Honestly, the whole situation comes off as kind of out of place for a Scream movie in my opinion, but hey, we'll see if it actually does happen on February 27th. For now, let's take it with a grain of salt, and we'll talk a little bit about it because that's fun. Concerning Ethan's character, Jude says, "Since everyone on here is convinced that Ethan Embry is the mental patient in Scream 7, let me clear it up, he's not. He plays an employee at the psychiatric hospital where Gale and Sydney investigate after Gale runs over the patient. The patient isn't a known actor at all." Whether you're digging this whole mental patient angle to Scream 7 or not, I definitely do think that Ethan Embry is going to have a smaller role in this film. Now, that doesn't mean he's not Ghostface, however. If you remember in Hard Eyes from earlier this year, a spyglass murder mystery, there was a really surprising and kind of laughable moment later on in the film with a one-note character. So anything can happen.
He's like Cupid with a kink.
Concerning Ethan Embry's career, he has played a plethora of characters. He was Rusty in Vegas Vacation. He plays a smaller role, but a good one in That Thing You Do, one of my all-time favorite movies outside of horror, and he plays kind of our lead bad guy, sort of, in the movie The Devil's Candy. If you haven't seen that one, I highly recommend it. It is a slight hidden gem. My very loose guess as to who Ghostface is this time around, at least one of them, is probably Anna Camp.
Scream 7. I mean, joining such an iconic franchise like that, come on.
Honestly, it was a dream come true because I had been a fan, obviously, of the Scream franchise since I was like in high school.
While I don't have a ton of logic to actually base this on, this set photo that came out of her in a black leather jacket is just screaming Ghostface reveal vibes. Also, I can totally see her playing Leslie Mocker, Stu's secret sister that we didn't know about until entry number 5. In my opinion, that should have just been a throwaway line in Scream 5, but I can totally see Scream 7 making it a whole thing. I don't know if I have a concrete guess as to who Ghostface is at this point. I mean, we haven't even seen any footage from the film yet, but the one thing that I am dead certain on is that it's going to be a killer that has some sort of personal stake in all the things that happened during the original Scream. Screams 5 and 6 made a point to say this franchise is always going to find a haphazard way to connect itself back to the 1996 events, and with the same writers on the new film, I'm certain that will be the case here too. Personally, that feels very predictable to me, but hopefully they find a way to surprise us on February 27th of next year.
It's for you.
We have some exciting Scream 7 rumors to break down in today's video. Let's talk about this alleged opening scene flashback, some solid reinvention of classic scenes from the original, and even a sequence fans have wanted in a new Scream film for some time now. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Today's video comes from a friend over on Twitter named Jude. After speaking with this kind fella, I have reason to believe a lot of the Scream 7 teases that he's put out on his page. Jude is still a third-party source, so take today's video with a grain of salt. These are just rumors, but exciting ones at that. Let's break down a few of his teases as well as detailing some of my theories I have based on them. Starting off with Ethan Embry's character, Jude tells us that he's an employee at a psychiatric hospital that Gale and Sydney investigate for clues. There's supposedly a sequence where Gale runs over a mental patient, which is yikes dark, which leads them to this hospital. Ethan will likely be that character that gives us some exposition on who that character was, who was able to escape this psychiatric facility, and likely further the mystery. I almost see him serving the same purpose as Dr. Stone from Scream 6, where he's really only featured for a few scenes, pushes the plot, and then gets a brutal death. Hopefully something that gets a little more screen time than Stone's resolve. If you want to hear me talk more about this sequence involving the Fallbrook Psychiatric Hospital, check out this video right here. Jude also teases a reference to the iconic Casey Becker opening from the original film. This time it's Tatum, Sydney's daughter, who is tied up, and Sydney must play play Ghostface's game to save her. There was also an homage in Scream 4, if you remember, to the Casey Becker opening sequence, where it was Kirby on the phone with Ghostface with Charlie tied up outside. That scene, of course, revealed that Charlie was the Ghostface killer, at least one of them in that film, and it was a really nice reversal, brought something new to that scene, subverted expectations. Since this is round 3 of doing the same kind of scene, I just hope it doesn't feel like a retread and is able to bring something fresh to the table. I have to admit though, I am kind of excited to see what this is all about. I love this setup. It's brutal and almost feels like a saw trap in the way that it's set up. It's sadistic watching your loved one potentially die, but it's so Scream because you have to answer horror movie trivia for them to live. I love that, and I totally understand why this franchise wants to keep going back to that scene, maybe finding some new things there. Unlike the original Scream though, this sounds like something that'll happen in Act 3, likely right before a Ghostface killer reveal. If that's the case, it seems like the third act will take place at Sidney's house, which feels very similar to many of the other Scream films that have a similar resolution. It feels a little repetitive to me to end a Scream film at somebody's insane-looking mansion, so hopefully that's just not the case. I love the more grandiose final settings of Scream 2 and Scream 6 that have so much to offer visually. Just the environment itself can add so much to the intensity of a really good climax. Speaking of the opening scene though, it's been teased that it'll take place somewhere that horror fans, especially Scream franchise fans, know all too well. Jude says, "Let's just say Ghostface doesn't care if you're a fan. History still burns. It's tense, it's brutal, it's meta as hell. This opening is everything we love about horror, cranked all the way up." We have learned a lot about whatever this opening scene is going to be. Multiple rumors now from a ton of different sources have basically confirmed that it's going to be some sort of flashback scene that takes place a year before the events of the original Scream, showcasing Maureen's murder, the thing that kicked off this franchise in the first place. I've heard from a number of sources now that this is how the returning dead characters are going to be utilized for the film. Take it with a grain of salt, I guess, but how else do you bring back Dewey, Roman, and Stu into this franchise? This is surprisingly new territory for the Scream franchise to do a flashback, something they've technically never done. But I will say, it seems like this sequel is borrowing a lot from Halloween Kills. In that film, we have an escaped mental patient on the loose that meets their untimely death in a really unsavory way, and there's a flashback opening here that gives us some exposition on something happening in the present. That sounds a lot like these Scream 7 rumors, man. If this was literally any other horror franchise, I'd be turning my nose up at this, but because it's Scream, I actually kinda dig this not-so-subtle homage. As a standalone in the Halloween franchise, I've always really enjoyed Kills. I mean, it's Michael Myers at his most brutal easily across all of those films. But the things that I'm not so crazy about is that a lot of the big setups, including that entire flashback opening sequence, end up going nowhere in Halloween Ends. So much character work was done with Frank Hawkins for him to become only a one-note nothing character dreaming about cherry blossoms in the next movie. Despite the phenomenal execution of that flashback sequence in Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends renders it completely pointless. It is possibly the biggest whiff in modern horror history, and I say that with absolutely no hyperbole. How do you mess that up with such an intriguing new character? The Scream franchise, however, is known for analyzing its competitors and sometimes even doing things better, hopefully. If Scream 7 can essentially do the same thing but actually make a consequential third act out of the flashback setup, it can easily do a layup on the ill-fated Halloween trilogy. Essentially what I'm saying is the ball is in your court, Ghostface. With Scream 7, you have an opportunity to do Halloween Kills, but better. Nothing, and I mean nothing, would win me over to the sequel more if they're able to execute that with grace. The last big thing that has come from this account is a tease at a sequence that many fans wanted to see in Scream 6, but unfortunately did not get. Gale Weathers will apparently interview Sidney Prescott on her morning show in New York when Ghostface calls in, likely making his presence known with some deadly threats. So a few questions I have here. If Sidney is in New York City, is she traveling with or without her family? If she's there alone, this scene would have to take place before she knows about a new Ghostface coming to town to potentially go after her family. That wouldn't make sense for her to leave them behind. I could actually see this being the scene that introduces us to Sidney Prescott again, while also giving her the information that Ghostface is back once again. Mid-interview, they get that call and they go right to the airport, they fly back to Indiana. It would be insane. So maybe no Ghostface chase scene here, unfortunately, like we were theorizing before Scream 6 came out. This scene could also establish how Chad and Mindy are working with Gale Weathers this time around. This is something that was teased to us by the Scream 7 writers recently, Guy Busick and James Vanderbilt. Somehow Gale is the reason that Chad and Mindy are brought into this specific story. Maybe Mindy is our boom op recording leaking audio while Chad shoots the interview, essentially trying to break into the film industry that these two characters love so much. That's how they unfortunately get roped into another Ghostface massacre. This could also be their way of explaining why the Carpenter sisters aren't here this time around, but the Meeks Martin twins are. I don't mind a return to New York City either. Even if it's something brief like this, I really enjoyed the setting in the last film, and I know I'm in the minority there. Maybe we won't see any Ghostface action while we're there, but it could be an effective way to transition from the spin-off feel of Scream 6 to the more grounded Scream 7. Jurassic World Rebirth, which is in theaters now, oddly just did something similar, where they transitioned from the grandiose, much larger story of Dominion down to a more grounded pocket story in Rebirth. It would make sense to do this in Scream 7 as it's being teased as this back-to-basics approach. It's a little more traditional for the franchise. I would argue that it's even more important for this new entry of Scream to do it over Jurassic World Rebirth, because we're actually taking characters from the 6th entry and transitioning them into this different story. Wrapping up this video, I want to remind you guys to take these rumors with a grain of salt, but if they're true, it is certainly exciting stuff. Scream has missed that invigorating bout of horror commentary that just didn't feel as sharp in the 6th entry. I did enjoy Scream 5's sharp commentary, hitting on toxic fandom, but it felt like it was trying to get away from the requel stuff. Could Scream 7 get a little more specific and target Halloween kills? Even though I do like that movie, it does have its flaws, something that I think Scream 7 could exploit and do better. Will Ghostface outshine the latest entries from Michael Myers? Well, we'll find out on February 27th of 2026.
Leave her alone. Ow, liver. It was a joke.
The biggest theory amongst the Scream fandom is that Stu Macher, one of the original Ghostfaces from the first movie, is still alive out there somewhere, plotting his revenge against Sidney Prescott. The theory has gained so much traction over time that the recent movies have even recognized and seemingly disproved it. The upcoming 7th installment, however, has Matthew Lillard attached to the cast, meaning that it's once again possible that the character could come back alive. Is Stu Macher still out there somewhere, or how will this Scream actor be utilized in the next installment? Well, that and a bunch of other Scream 7 updates are the topic of today's video, so let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Recently, we've had a ton of small little Scream franchise updates, including an update on the 8th installment. It's been reported by Production Weekly that Scream 8 will film in March of 2026, only a few days after the release of the next film during the theatrical run of Scream 7, also in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, Scream 7 shot in the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia earlier this year, making me think that Scream 8 could be some sort of part 2 opposed to like a whole nother story. It could maybe even take place in the same town as the previous film where Sydney and her family reside, Pine Grove, Indiana, and could even pick up right where we left off. That's something the franchise has never really done before, and the rumor right now is that 7 will feature a cliffhanger that moves into a part 8. These are some very fresh ideas for the franchise. This could be proof of it too. And if you're worried that Scream 7 isn't gonna do well, that would leave us on a cliffhanger that never gets resolved, I promise you that Scream 7, no matter what the quality of the film is, people are going to show up. It is going to make money. There is far too much star power in this upcoming movie for there not to be butts in seats at the theater during its opening weekend. I hope that this one is also good too and does something fresh with the series, but that's yet to be determined. I will say though, a well-executed cliffhanger, something this franchise has never done before, could be that for me. There's also a brand new interview with Scream 7 actress Anna Camp, who is currently my #1 suspect as to who Ghostface is this time around. When asked if she rewatched all of the Scream movies before entering production, she said she definitely did. Sounds like this Ghostface is doing her homework. Camp doubles down on Sydney being the focal point of this story by saying this character is so close to home for Nev. Obviously, she's grown up playing this role that she knows when the script is not right, or if something doesn't feel like what Sydney would say. Maybe it's just me, but does it feel like every single Scream interview feels like these people are reading off of a script? It kind of just feels like they're telling fans what they want to hear about this one, but my question is, will they actually deliver in that department? Scream 7 seemingly has the requel format of the previous two, where our story is split between legacy characters and new characters alike. This resulted in one of the biggest complaints for the previous two films, that the legacy characters just didn't have enough screen time. So it begs the question, who will really be the focus of Scream 7? Sidney Prescott or Sydney's daughter? See, this wouldn't even be a concern concern for me if we didn't have Sydney's daughter being played by an upcoming actress, as well as somebody who's getting the most attention outside of the legacy characters. So far, Isabel May's new character is the only new character that has any bit of coverage whatsoever. Everything about the other characters that you guys are talking about is just rumors. Isabel May playing Sydney's daughter is 100% confirmed, making me think she has a lead role position here. I would have no complaints about a Scream movie that followed Sydney's daughter. That would be cool and a fun new character to explore, but they're marketing this as a Sydney story. I hope they've committed to that. Balancing the narrative between way too many main characters is what made the previous two films kind of sloppy in my opinion. I really hope they've gotten away from that format moving into 7. More than anything, I just want a simple murder mystery story again, and with this movie having like 100 actors in it, I don't know if that's gonna be what we get. I'm exaggerating a bit, but the cast for this movie is outrageously large. And speaking of which, we might just have another unannounced name returning to the franchise in this series. Coming from trusted third-party source Jude here, he confirms that there's another legacy character returning from the original 4 films, with the only hint being that it's not Skeet Ulrich. And he's probably in this one too. I will say, it's interesting that Jude said the original 4 films. Usually when we're talking about the Scream franchise, it's broken into 2 different parts. The original trilogy, which kind of has its own feel, versus the latter 3, which are definitely their own thing. That makes me think it could be somebody from that 4th installment. It could be Kirby Reed, who of course was confirmed alive after her supposed death in Scream 4 moving into Scream 5. She then returned as an FBI agent in Part 6 to help out the Carpenter sisters. She made it very clear in that film that she takes Ghostface cases very seriously. I imagine she'll want to be there for the next one. Now, if it is Kirby Reed that Jude is alluding to here, I don't think her role is going to be that significant. Last year, we got reports from Production Weekly that a Kirby spin-off was in the works, so maybe this could be set up for that. Could you see some sort of brief cameo appearance from her that sets that up for the future? Jude also alludes to Angelina Tyler potentially showing up somehow in Scream 7, a character that died in Scream 3, but has been theorized to potentially be the other Ghostface that just never got revealed in the film. With Scott Foley coming back as Roman Bridger, maybe they're bringing that fan theory to life. The only thing we can be sure of right now is that I'm sure Scream 7 has some more secrets that they haven't just spoiled outright in the marketing so far. At least I hope. Some of the big surprises from this film have seemingly already been confirmed, with Matthew Lillard, David Arquette, and Scott Foley all returning to the franchise, which is a major shock. Speaking of which, finally getting into the Stu talk here, Jude also confirms that the debate on Stu Macher's survival rages on here in 7. A recent post from him read, "Even in Scream 7, the debate over Stu's survival is alive and kicking. Sidney is willing to believe he made it through, while Gale isn't buying it one bit. It's a brilliant mirror to the fandom's endless debates, making us question what's real and what's just wishful thinking." So a few things to break down here. Jude essentially says that the point of this scene is to be a mirror to the fandom's endless debate, reflecting a lot of the Stu debates that we have on pages just like this. I just don't see the laconic, more mature version of Sidney Prescott entertaining such a conversation. I mean, she literally believes she executed him back in '96. Why would she think he was alive? It made sense when Mindy and Kirby kind of went back and forth about it in Scream 6. This feels like a repeat of the same scene, but done with characters where it doesn't fit. Mindy Meeks Martin and Kirby Reed literally are characters that represent the Scream fandom, where Sidney and Gale are like the lead characters. They don't represent that. Sidney's not even a fan of the horror genre that she lives in, and she's made that quite clear a couple of times throughout the franchise's history. The big question here, though, is does this debate confirm whether Stu is dead or alive? No. This to me sounds like a lesser version of the scene from Scream 6 where the same exact thing happens. Two characters go back and forth about in-universe Stu Macher theories. Despite it being a flimsy theory in-universe, people still believe that Stu can come back, and I think that's great. I mean, they literally kill one of their own ghost faces with a CRT television. Sorry, the same CRT television that took out Stu Macher in '96 in that film, and we still have Stu theories rolling in. I believe the only way the Stu theories are going to stop is if at some point we see Stu Macher's dead body rotting in the ground. But why would this franchise ever do that? That kind of just sucks the fun out of creating a fan theory if the franchise itself is just gonna kick you in the face for believing that at some point. This fan theory is fun and has snowballed so much that it drives constant engagement with the series, making some fans see the next movie no matter what for a chance to see their favorite Ghostface on screen again. The theory is a fun thing to discuss, but I just don't take it very seriously because I can't see it becoming an effective of twist in a Scream movie. Revealing a character who was already revealed as one of the ghost faces in another film but miraculously survived a fatal injury. That just sounds like the plot of a late season soap opera to me, not a meta horror slasher film. My guess is that Matthew Lillard is returning as Stu in flashback sequences to something that happened during his run as Ghostface. That is probably going to affect the events that happen in this film 30 years later. I mean, it's an anniversary, you gotta think we're gonna go back to the original in some unique way, fingers crossed. My thing about this is I feel like it still satisfies the urge of seeing your favorite Ghostface on screen again. They're just not involved with the story as much as maybe some would hope. We're probably gonna see Matthew Lillard doing his goofy shtick as a young Stu on screen again. Isn't that kind of what we want as Scream fans from this? I mean, who doesn't love Matthew Lillard? Hey everybody, if you like horror movie updates like this, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified every time I post a new video. Also, check out our merch store to show off your love of horror movies and lack of friends. The link is in the description below. So what do you guys think about Stu Macher? Is he alive or dead? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching, please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.